Thank you. And let's just talk about also the operations management framework. We're not going to go through all the details. Read the book or read the chapter. It's available on Amazon. You can also look on the Apex GBS website and download PDFs of the chapters if you prefer to do it that way. But let's talk about the operations management framework and just hear your experience and advice for the people listening on what the most impactful opportunities are for maturing and strengthening operations. AJ, building off what you were just talking about.
Yeah, sure, Tim. So when you look at mature and effective GBS organizations that are able to deliver predictable cost to serve, great value, good levels of quality and experience, as we've talked, and you're able to enable scale and capability build, that can be achieved with a few key levers that we talk about in the book. So one is, as I said, the foundational element, which is around process streamlining through standardization, harmonization, and process reengineering. Thinking about strong experience and service management is another layer. And then looking at automation and AI and your ability to enable citizen development in those areas is another lever. And then finally, looking at effective talent and sourcing model. Once you've worked on these
Mm,
levers, they can then be translated into what we are calling an operations drumbeat on a day-to-day basis, where you're then bringing in core processes like your operations strategy, your operations control, and continuous improvement as a way to drive these benefits on a continuous basis and to make it your competitive advantage. What I will call out is two or three pitfalls that we have
yeah.
seen, and it's good to just talk through them as a way of sharing them. If you do standardization without adoption, right, where you've not worked with your SMEs, your business partners, although I called it the foundational layer that can create a lot of value, it is not going to create all the benefit that you were thinking about. The second one is doing technology for technology's sake, right? So GBS is one of the places where you have to ensure that you have to do it everywhere, but certainly in GBS, people, process, technology, you're thinking
Mm.
about how are you reimagining the process, what are you trying to achieve with the process, and then thinking about introducing technology. And then the third pitfall that I'll call out is measuring the wrong things, right? So as Tony said, it's not just about cost, it's about the three E's that we've talked about. And how do you think about what we call 360-degree KPIs that allow you to look at all dimensions of what you're trying to achieve with your operations?
Those three things really do resonate with me. And we were talking yesterday about the problem. It's been in the industry for years of the watermelon KPIs that look green, but actually the service is not. And we again, with experience, we're also in what I'm doing, leading with KPIs. In fact, it's when we start a project, it's kind of deliverable number one is where are we going and what are the KPIs we're going to use to measure that journey. And but getting that thing right is not easy, as I think is what's behind what you're saying. Tony, you want to add anything on the operations framework and pitfalls and maturing ideas?
Oh, absolutely. Would love to. One piece of context, the operations chapter and the work that we do here is incredibly important because keep in mind that, 80, 90% of the staff in the GBS industry is operations. These are the people in the, shared service centers and the BPOs that are actually doing the transaction. And so this is really where our army, if you will, is mostly situated. The second point I wanted to make is that, there is a best-in-class model to run these operations. And this is the insight that gray-haired people like me over a period of, 3 decades have figured out that we don't all have to reinvent the wheel. We can take some of these models and bring it to life. And that's really what that chapter and the model tries to do. Back to your point about, best-in-class stories. There are several, and in the process of the work that I do these days at Initia, we've had the opportunity to work with maybe about a dozen or so companies where
Mm.
we've actually gone into their operations. So this is a focus on operations, and we've helped them figure out how to take really good operations into absolutely incredible operations. And I want to share a couple of insights without getting into specifics of names. So in a couple of cases, the first and most important thing was, are you measuring the right things? Because it's very easy for us in the GBS industry to take all of the work that we do that comes out of the transaction factory, if you will, and to communicate that saying, hey, look, here's all the stuff that we're doing that's green. And then back to Ajay's point, this is where you're likely to see the watermelon effect, which is stakeholders who look at this and say, oh, I see a lot of green stuff coming from you, but hey, why is it that, the books are taking like a week to close, right? Or why is it that our suppliers are saying they don't get paid on time if all of these metrics are green? And so what tends to happen then is people will go in and then start to give, a lot of defensive arguments like, no, 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 you're holding us accountable for end to end. We only control so much, and we only report against so much. That is what we've seen in a lot of cases. So we have to essentially take ourselves out of the factory and think as business transformation leaders. We have to say, let me take the payment on time example. The payment on time in this company, I'm sorry, it sucks. It is, usually 60 days delayed. That is deep red. The GBS portion of transaction management is green. And here are all of those things that need to be fixed in order for the company to benefit. You start to see how operations and the selection of metrics can play such a key role. So these are the kind of things, what metrics do you select? Are you essentially just simply automating or transforming at the same time? And how do you balance between running, continuous improvement, and disruptive innovation? These are the kind of things that we've seen great results on in some of my experience in this last decade or so.
I was on a meeting just like that this morning, Tony, and one of the things that we observed is that you can't do that stuff until you've got a foundation, a foundational understanding, foundation of process. But then when you've got it and you've got the confidence, you can start going after it, maybe piece at a time, to over the whole journey, improve the end-to-end process. And really strong stuff there about end-to-end process thinking and end-to-end KPIs as well. Let's move on to another question. And I'll just say, no one's put a question in the chat. Please do. We will have a few moments at the end and think about what you want to ask Tony and Ajay, and if there's anything that we can cover when we get probably about the half hour, we'll talk to that.